Alright, so here we are with Unit 7, Lesson number 3. Okay, oh, sorry. Let me get back to the next slide. Okay, so in this section, in Lesson number 3, we're going to be looking at something called expressing concentration. Concentrations, in this particular case, is really not giving you a very accurate answer. It's not giving you a number for how concentrated it is. Concentrated means, how much solute do you have compared to the amount of solvent. Um, and you can have a dilute or a concentrated solution. A dilute solution means that you have relatively little solute dissolved in the solvent. So, for example, if I took, a really large beaker and I filled it with water, let's say I have 1,000 milliliters of water or a liter of water, and I put in a pinch of salt, just a little bit of salt. That would be a dilute solution because I have very little solute, salt, and a lot of solvent, the water. A concentrated solution would be just the opposite of that. I have a lot of solute compared to solvent. It doesn't mean they have an equal amount. So, for example, if I took that same liter of water and instead of a pinch of salt, I put in, several tablespoons of salt, that would be a concentrated solution, but it doesn't have to be a 1-to-1 ratio. You don't have to have an equal amount of solute to solvent to be a concentrated solution. Another way of looking at concentrations would be the terms saturated, unsaturated, and supersaturated. And again, not three really important definitions. You will see that it is important when you get to look at the next lesson, which is Table G. So what is a saturated solution? A saturated solution is exactly as the name implies. It's saturated. It has the maximum amount of solute dissolved in the solvent at a specific temperature. And that means if you have a saturated solution, what it means is this, you can test it. If you take some more of your solute and you put it in and it sinks to the bottom, then you know it's saturated. It can't dissolve any more of the solute. That would be a saturated solution. And no matter how much you add, it's never going to dissolve. It'll just keep sitting at the bottom. That's how you know it's solute. It's saturated. Saturated solutions are said to be in an equilibrium, and here's what they mean by rate of dissolving equals rate of crystallization. When you put that extra drop of or pieces of solute in it, it looks like they sink to the bottom. What's actually happening is when you put that new material in, let's say you put in 3 crystals of it, those 3 crystals are not what you see at the bottom. When you put 3 crystals in the saturated solution, 3 crystals that are already dissolved actually recrystallize and settle at the bottom. So what you see at the bottom is not actually what you just added. And every time you add more of it's going to recrystallize. And that's what they mean by being in equilibrium. The rate of dissolving equals crystallization. So every time you put in more, an equal amount is going to crystallize. That's a solution that's at equilibrium. There's 2 other ones. One is unsaturated, which of course would be the opposite of saturated. An unsaturated solution means there's still more room for more solute to dissolve. How do you know if you have an unsaturated solution? Simple. Every time you add solute, it dissolves. That tells you that it's still unsaturated. And if more solute is added, it dissolves. So if you see a solution like this one on the right, and every time you add more sodium chloride, it still dissolves, you know it's unsaturated. The strangest one is called a supersaturated solution, and a supersaturated solution is a solution that's actually holding more solute than it normally can. Well, how is that possible? We just said that if you take a saturated solution and you add more solute, you'll see more appear at the bottom, and that's true. So what we have to do is we have to cheat. We have to heat the solvent to a higher temperature so we can dissolve extra solute, and then we let it cool back down without disturbing it, because supersaturated solutions are extremely unstable. If you disturb it in any way, the extra solute that was dissolved will come out of solution. And the video that's here is actually a pretty good video. It shows you a demonstration of a supersaturated solution. I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but we'll take a look at it because it is pretty good.
And then you put it in your coffee and you're supposed to spin it around. Right. And holy freight, that's a lot of sugar.
I know
right?
it, right? It is.
All right, so this is a saturated solution. You take sugar, you put it in water, and you keep on dissolving it until it doesn't dissolve anymore. There's that last little layer on the bottom. That's when that tea is the best, right? And that's a saturated solution.
Okay.
But if you heat it up, it becomes a supersaturated solution,
Right.
moving those molecules apart. And that's what we did with these solutions that are here.
Okay.
So they're precariously placed. This is a salt here, and you can kind of see the salt here on the plate.
Yeah.
It's called sodium acetate. So I took that and I kept on dissolving it, kept on dissolving it. So So here's what we have, and so let me hold it up here so you can kind of see. This is our solution of sodium acetate, and I have it covered here because even the tiniest little speck of dust will trip this. So watch this. I'm going to take it off, and I want you to reach out and just get one tiny little crystal, just a single.
So now this is a supersaturated solution of sodium acetate, which is another salt. Not sodium chloride, but sodium acetate. It's still a salt. He dissolved more than it could by heating it to a high temperature. He dissolved a whole bunch of the sodium acetate and now has let it cool, which means that it's unstable. And watch what happens.
Show them on your finger. Just a
You can
single
see.
little crystal
Maybe
that's
have
there.
like even just a couple. It's probably
That's
too
it.
many.
And just reach over and you're going to just tap it right on the top. Ready? So just tap it on the top and you can kind of watch what
Oh,
happens.
cool!
Isn't that just amazing?
It's just spreading out, kind of like when you see things freeze. Really
Absolutely.
quickly.
And so you've got crystal formation in there. Again, it's called sodium acetate trihydrate, and that's
Isn't
isn't that
and
just
it's going
gorgeous?
up the side.
It's also
Very
exothermic, so
cool.
put your hands around it. You'll be nice and warm.
Oh.
Isn't that just amazing?
Wow.
So
Okay, so that was a pretty cool demonstration of a supersaturated solution.